Hi everyone, I am Adriana Iordan. Thank you for joining me. Today I'll share some learnings we had while changing the product development organization as we grew from 2 product managers to over 25 people just in product management team. As context, the company has doubled the number of employees in less than 2 years. We went through a large project of integrating two platforms and migrating customers over after the acquisition of a company. But before I get into how we do it and to check out the company I'm managing the product portfolio for, I also want to mention that each organization needs to find its own blueprint and there isn't a one size fits all design that anyone can recommend. Even in our case, we still learn, continue to adapt and improve on. So let's get down to it. So I'll start with product management team. One thing that troubled me was this notion of a super product person who gets out of the building to identify market needs, to speak with customers, with users, to write requirements, to manage backlogs, to over-communicate internally and externally, to follow releases and adoption programs for business impact and customer outcomes metrics. These are more usually part of the product manager job description. Not to mention, sometimes there are expectations of product managers predicting dates on when new functionalities will be available or be ready to jump on a sales call anytime and do demos. But in reality, most often you get a burnout person who wants to do discovery work and fails at shipping products, or the opposite. And it's not just a matter of time and availability, but also one related to skill set gaps, as the visionary doesn't excel at execution. And very few product managers easily say they are good, given the expectations of 3 roles, 3 hats: technical, marketing, and business strategic. If we just look at the pragmatic marketing framework with specific deliverables and activities expected that you would need to do for building impactful products. So if in your organization you see overwhelmed product people, your mission is to ensure the team has the air cover and space to do their best, and most importantly to learn, be it through customer interviews or shipping products or analyzing data, user data. Good product managers are constantly looking to learn what makes an impact to customers. In fact, both tracks of processes and activities, be it discovery or delivery, for both of them, we need to constantly learn. So one first change we implemented was to assess the skills we had in the product managers team, the 2 at that time, and then adding new people, and clarify the skill sets and looking to ensure the bandwidth for both discovery and delivery. Currently, this is set as having 4 divisions: product managers, product owners, product marketing, and user experience designers. We also get support from specialists in analytics and onboarding as we look to implement more and more of the product-led tactics and strategies. So product managers are strategic. They focus on the product vision, company objectives in the market. They are the ones going out of the building and being close to the sales and building a list of assumptions to be validated, problems, list of prioritized problems, while the product owners are more tactical. They find solutions together with the teams they are part of, the agile development teams, and constantly do small iterations and experiments with real user data. So the definition includes stage includes contribution of product manager, product owner, and user experience designer, since the early problem statement and validation processes with users and stakeholders. I do want to highlight the fact that it's important, even if you do separate the roles, to keep them in sync on both customer needs and technology updates, as none of this is so black and white. They all need to bring in different perspectives, as earlier mentioned, the super product person. While they are creative, they also need to bring in, since day one, in the ideation and prioritization discussions, developers and architects, the product builders. So it's relevant to discuss about splitting roles in product management or growing this organization, but in the context of the product stage you're in, or the number of developers you have. In the early stages, prior to product market fit, it's usually the founder who drives the product vision, and any hire you would have as a product manager most likely will focus on executing on this founder vision together with engineering. While the company grows, the product has reached the product market fit. In that scenario, you need to bring in people who will free up the founders and be ready to facilitate both discovery and delivery work together with the rest of the company. So keep that in mind as well as you look to structure the product management group. Every stage of every phase of a company life brings a unique set of challenges that you need to consider. So once you've set up the product management organization, roles and responsibilities, processes, tools, metrics, you look at assessing if you have a mature team. And some of the signals I consider for both tracks, be it discovery, where we need to identify the right products to build, or the delivery, where we look at are we building them right. Some examples of such patterns. So on discovery side, you would have product managers with that are comfortable having P&L ownership, with metrics that drive impact, customer outcomes, who are familiar with client stories and empathize with them, who refer a lot to user data, to business numbers, understand very well the competitors' offers. They also understand that there isn't a project does not end with a release, and they constantly look for data to iterate and improve and validate the initial assumptions. So that's on the product management side. On the product owner side, I'm looking at if the people know how's the distribution in their teams, how much we are allocating for roadmap, for customer commits, for technical depth, for bug fixing, for architectural changes. Are they on top of it? Can they influence it? Can they do they understand the allocation and the prioritization framework? Also, people who are respected by their teams and the builders, and they empower the teams to find the best solutions. And it's not just developers, but also the user experience designers and the stakeholders they involve in the requirements gathering and validation phase. And they also look constantly at processes and optimizing the outcomes, and are interested in the impact that each of the functionalities generate for their users. Also, one other thing to mention here is this it's very important to ensure that you don't have a handover type of process where product managers hand over business cases to product owners work in silos on functional requirements, they hand over the request of a mock-up of a prototype to user experience designer, and then another handover to within development. So that's not ideal. You want the three roles to collaborate since early days and bringing all the perspectives, and not just within this group, but also people outside of product management team to contribute. Next, you want to make sure that the product management team has the proper environment to thrive in both tracks, discovery and delivery. Hence, that you are fully aligned with the builders, the engineering and the IT teams. You might be familiar with agile teams or variations like squads from Spotify, or pods or pods, or tribes. No matter the approach or the names, the main takeaways are related to having smaller teams that thrive on autonomy, mastery, and that solve real business needs in a faster and more efficient manner. So that's the underlying theory that was implemented by the large companies, technology companies out there. So we wanted to achieve that as well, especially as the development organization was getting larger and larger. So we looked at how we should structure this, and we chose as a dimension the product line, the line of business, so that we ensure that there's a component product expertise, the capabilities expertise that also has an industry behind, a domain and the segment of customers, and more importantly that they are aligned against a key metric so they have a common purpose. We also wanted to ensure that these lanes have teams that are no larger than 6, 8 to 10 at most people in a team, and that you have all the roles needed to deliver end-to-end value to the users of that component or of the mix of products that's being offered in the market. You also want to be ready as an organization to treat differently product development, which can include several iterations, minimum viable concept, and the lean approach, versus projects that have strict deadlines and are with a known scope and will end after their delivery. And in that case, you would need to identify early on the types of initiatives, and even if you do specialized teams for product development, so for the teams to self-organize and prepare and progress against key metrics, key problems they want to solve, you also are flexible to create task forces when needed for 3-6 months at most for such special projects where program management and project delivery are needed. So you want to strive for feature teams supported by platforms, tooling, UI components that are specialized, self-organizing, purpose-driven, cross-functional groups, and that can have an impact and are following customer outcomes, are close to customer outcomes, and less on delivering projects. And if we are looking at when's the right moment to consider specialized teams, first it starts with the size of development. So once you have more than 15-25 developers, you can start creating at least a smaller team that's specialized, while the rest is more of a general team, has general skills. And as the organization grows even further, you want to distribute this model in all of them. In our case, other symptoms that we recognized were related to the fact that we were finding it very difficult to justify allocation of development capacity to prioritize for internal automation or technical depth, given the more immediate value and the pressure of delivering on the customer enhancements and the roadmap projects. So we wanted to make sure that there's a proper distribution of investments that the product managers can decide upon without doing a lot of trade-offs. We also were in a situation where we had several user personas and market segments we wanted to go after with the same product. So we needed more better understanding and deeper knowledge of the user behaviors and needs. You might consider this also when you already have a backlog of validated ideas and you just look for better delivery processes and faster onboarding of and knowledge distribution within the development team, and so on. So let's conclude with how we structured this into checkout. We mapped the backlogs against the teams, the investments we wanted to do. We looked at the product strategy. We looked at the metrics we wanted to influence more, and came up with a structure where we almost consider this as products by themselves, although they are part of all-in-one platform. They can be enabled, disabled for full flexibility of the packaging. They have a specific set of competitors, business needs, user needs in the market. They have specific metrics they influence. So each of these lanes will also have one or two teams, one product owner. The teams will have developers, product owner, the tester, the architect, supporting roles, analytics, user experience designer, IT, DevOps. But even further, we brought in these teams also capability experts. So, for instance, in the internal team, which is a team for the internal applications that are being used by the operations teams, we brought people from financial operations, from the underwriting teams, so stakeholders that will use the enhancements, have the expertise, and work hand in hand with the team and the product owner to not just identify the right next investments, but also how to build those. We also have these lanes that are that have expertise from specific fields, like performance and security. You have security engineers. It starts here, but then this team also builds the guidelines and the standards for the other teams to adhere to. Okay. In the case of payments, we looked at bringing in payment operations specialists, those that are signing the contracts with our processors. So the idea here was to ensure that the team has more and more the capabilities and access to people who would accelerate and deliver end-to-end. One other thing that we tested here was how we rally these teams against a metric that's impacting the customer outcomes. So it's what we call as stickiness reporting. So in our case, for instance, we are less looking at the adoption of a feature, but the impact that feature brought to the customers using it. So let me give you an example. For instance, if we look at an add-on, revenue recovery tools, we say we are tracking not just the number of the users that are purchasing this add-on or are enabling this add-on, but the users that generated at least 5% of uplift of sales because of the add-on. So we can actually see the outcome was verified and it was met. So that's a bit of the change of how we started to communicate the purpose within the teams. So one of the change was to look at ways to bring in more of the customer-facing teams into the daily decisions of product development. So beyond the roadmap creation, where you have several brainstorming sessions where both business technology, bringing in senior leadership members to contribute to the product strategy and then translate it into a plan, a roadmap with all the projects, that all the major initiatives and the teams, the problems you want to solve. We also looked at ensuring there's a stream of daily decisions that can follow a similar framework of prioritization, and that shouldn't go necessarily to product management or not allow the people closest to the problem to articulate it. So specifically how this works is, for instance, for the customer requests or the prospects requests coming through sales, customer success managers, or vendor support, or the professional services teams, they have a process where they prioritize the work of product managers to investigate in a sprint. So for instance, the product managers would receive the prioritized list of requests or assumptions that we should investigate and validate if we if we see viability, business viability, if we see feasibility, if it will be usable, if it's something that we will include or not in our roadmap or in dedicated lane to develop near term. So that's one process that brought a lot of transparency amongst the commercial side product to focus on the right investigations, focus on the right assumptions beyond the research that the product managers are doing in regards to markets and user interviews and customer interviews that they are doing. That's one example. The other example is in regards to bug fixing. So the support team has a framework we all aligned against for how we prioritize them, the bugs and the service requests, the urgent requests from customers writing to vendor support. So they are empowered to assess, categorize all those incidents and requests, urgent requests by the lanes that we've created, and also prioritize them in a Kanban dashboard for each of the teams. Obviously, the product owner can and the team can change the order, but the primary driver is directly the support team closest to the number of requests, similar requests received for that specific bug or enhancement that's being raised. So these are just some examples of some of the changes we've implemented. So we all want to build products that create value for our customers and businesses. So we need good foundations for product development in our companies, be it through assessing the capabilities that you have in product management teams, or by looking at ways to bring in more of the people closest to the users and the customers in the decision-making processes, or structured teams that act almost like small startups within a larger organization that can have less dependencies on other groups, or processes, prioritization between teams. All of this, it's meant to reach the larger goal we all have, to be closer to generating customer outcomes that are impacting the overall business. This was my talk today. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, or you want to learn more about to check out products, please check our website or contact me directly. Thank you.